Yeah, so I also know the harder it gets, the more likely I have job security. Because if you're not on Amazon, you're irrelevant. And the
Mm.
second that statement's not true, my agency will just pivot over to wherever we need to be, right? We help people on Walmart, we help people on TikTok, but I'm here to tell you it is 10 times harder to sell on Walmart and you get 1/30th of the return. So why would anybody want to do that?
And welcome back to the Money, the Mindset, and the Mentoring podcast. Today with me, we have Stephen Pope. He is my Amazon guy. And when I saw that, I was just giggling. I'm like, how'd you come up with that name? And then when you told me the story, I thought it was pretty hilarious.
Yeah, I was in the laundry room with my wife, and she actually just called me on my phone. I need to silence that. And she said, I'd just been laid off. I was trying to figure out what I was going to do with my consulting work. And she said, how do people normally introduce you? And I said, they don't care who I am. They don't remember my name. They just say, talk to my Amazon guy. And she looked at me and I looked at her. I'm like, hey, that's a pretty good name. Let's go with that.
Let's go with that. That's amazing. Now, you went from being my Amazon guy to my Amazon guy with a lot of results. And so let's talk a little bit about the journey of that, because I want people, as we start talking about the Amazon journey and how to be successful in that space, I want to talk about that you actually have a lot of credibility because of what you've done with your business. So just let's give a little bit of an understanding of what that looks like quickly.
Yeah, so now we have 500 employees, over 400 brands we work with, and the agency grosses about $20 million a year. We control about $800 million on the Amazon platform for those 400 brands, to give you kind of an idea as well. And everything you could potentially buy on Amazon, we probably have a brand that sells it. Everything from clothing to tumblers and tweezers and everything in between.
That's amazing. So what specifically, when you look at the 500 people, what are they doing for the brands on Amazon to help them be successful? What are the top things that they're focusing on?
Yeah, all the common things you'd expect at an agency, the account management, all that good stuff. The things that might be unique about us is we have 55 designers. We have 40 people focused on SEO, 70 focused on PPC, and a lot of specialties that require a lot of technical work. So we hire a lot of introverted, deductive problem solvers who can go in there and crack the code of Amazon. And there's no degree for Amazon. You can't go get a 4-year degree on Amazon and say, hey, I know how to sell there now. You have to go and sell yourself and pay a tax. You have to pay the learning tax. So there's just a lot of mistakes that sellers make. And so the advantage of using an agency with a fast growing platform, it's always changing, is what you would normally see on a one account over the course of a year, we see on the course of 2 times a day. So whether that's listing yanks and suspensions or challenges or a new beta program, whatever it might be, we just see it faster than everybody else, and we can then rotate resources and then all ships rise together.
Yeah, I love the idea when you say tax. I mean, as a Canadian, we know that word extremely well. And I do agree that anything that you learn.
That's the government for taxing us so much. They know how to spend my money better than I do.
Could you please tax us more, government? And they just listen, and they're going to. But the idea is when you're learning something new, or when you're doing something, there is a learning curve to anything, whether it's, like we were going to talk about Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, but anything that you learn, there's a tax that's associated with it. If you're in the gym by yourself and you're rolling with Bob the Dummy and you're just trying to figure things out, it's going to take a lot to learn that. But you go to a gym with somebody like Hickson, or you go to the gym with somebody like Henzo or maybe Gordon Ryan or somebody like that. I mean, you're going to escalate so much faster because you have that support to be able to do that. And so I think now, what are the big stumbling blocks when you look and saying, like, I've seen people who sell books on Amazon and do okay, some do well, and you see people who sell clothes on Amazon, some do okay. I've got a friend who sells candles on Amazon and sometimes do well. Yeah. So what is the difference? What is the mechanism for success? If you could say there's one thing that people need to do, that they need to pay attention to, if this is one thing, what would that be?
Product selection, no question. And it's because you could have the worst marketing in the world, but if you have the best product, you're still going to generate sales. Now, obviously, I'm biased to say marketing is important. I'm a marketing agency, and we'll come in and we'll blow up a product, but even still, if you don't have the right product to begin with, you're not going to compete. The Chinese are going to hit you from the right on price. and their government literally subsidizes their products to sell on Amazon at a lower price than yours. Then you have competitors like aggregators and other brands hitting you from the left who are just trying to take you out and beat you on competition or design or branding or marketing, right? So these are big investors. About $8 billion entered the Amazon space in the last 5 years. And then Amazon itself, since it's entering the maturity phase and doesn't really care about sellers, they only care about buyers. They're the most buyer-centric company in the world, but they don't even make the top 1,000 on seller-centric companies. They might make the bottom 1,000, quite frankly. And then they're getting hit on the top. And Amazon's squishing down because they're adding hurdles and layers of documentation, and then they'll shoot first and ask questions later. And one day you'll just log into your account and it's suspended, or your main listing is taken down and you see a lost dogs page, which is kind of a niche thing that happens to sellers. So as a seller, you're getting hit from the left, you're getting hit from the right, and the Chinese and the Amazon's hitting you from top down, and you get scrunched in this box and you don't know what to do. And so, turning that into jujitsu, it's like, man, if you don't know how to shrimp, you're done, right? So you got to know how to get out. You got to know how to get around the body and protect yourself. And so as an agency, we are basically a jujitsu coach, protecting the seller and making sure they know how to go on the offense after they get off the ground.
Now, you mentioned a buyer-centric and a seller-centric environment. And I want to flesh that out because I think that's sort of something that I want to have a better understanding of. So talk to me about what those two ecosystems look like.
So as a buyer, Amazon's great, right? And Amazon's a monopoly. Let's first establish that they're 100% a monopoly. Now, it's been great for buyers as a monopoly. Why? Because I can order anything and get it same day delivered, 4-hour delivery in Atlanta, right? And it's amazing what their logistics have pulled off, right? 10 years ago, this was unheard of. And still today, I don't think anybody can name a second platform that can match Amazon's logistic capabilities. Walmart might be the next closest, and they are terrible, right? Like they're so inconsistent. Like, I don't know about grocery pickup over in Canada, but in the United States, it takes a half hour. You go to Target though, and like, I swear to you, they're waiting on the curbside for you. So Target's a sleeper. I think they're the dark horse that might surprise us here in the next couple of years. But in reality, Walmart's not a marketplace. They are a retail store playing online. And Target, similarly, same thing. They also have a closed marketplace. They're not really taking on sellers. There's probably about 1,000 sellers that can sell on their platform. Drop shipping is dead. You can't really do that. Amazon's hostile to that now. And then you got the Chinese coming up with a couple of programs a la TikTok and Temu. And again, subsidizing them. So they have a fighting chance, but what they don't have is any logistics. They don't have the facilities. They don't have these giant football stadium-sized FBA facilities that Amazon has in 500 plus locations.
Yeah, absolutely. The distribution from Amazon is just insane. I was talking with, actually my brother used to work for a company that was getting into to try to compete with Amazon on a distribution level, and their burn rate just chewed them up and spit them out.
Yeah. I mean, if you don't have like $5 billion sitting around, good luck.
It's just not going to happen.
Level of stuff.
Where I live, if you drive down one stretch of the highway, I think there's like 5 of those. I think a football stadium probably is an underwhelming statement to what the size of those things. I'd probably say 5 football stadiums that just feel like there's helicopters who land the AC units on top of those buildings because they're just too damn big. So, I think that happens. Yeah. So the idea of saying that, okay, so they're the devil that you got to work with. And you said they're not.
And sellers are the devil you have to work with, 100%.
Yeah. So as a seller, what would make a good seller ecosystem, and why is Amazon flawed in that perspective?
Well, sellers want to be able to market their customers. Amazon takes that away. So you can't email your customers. It's very difficult to generate reviews. You have to pay to play. And so, I was one of the original gangsters, so to speak, on Amazon. I was selling products in the beta advertising program for 2 cents a click and getting slot number 1 for PPC, which, if you go back in time, I wish I had the wealth I have today back then to invest in products and get ahead of the game, because that was when you could just print money on Amazon. It was insanely easy. Today, it's very difficult. PPC costs are equivalent of Google, Facebook, etc. And so you have to pay to play. They're running out of spaces to charge you for ads on Amazon. Ad costs are up like 25%. Amazon makes more money from PPC, from sellers, than they do from all of AWS combined. That changed last year in 2023. So the platform is built to make Amazon a profit today. Now, when they were first growing up, they were all about growth, investment, and that's when sellers were having a heyday. But today, they're squeezing the seller. Most recently, they announced some new seller fees. They're now charging you for low inventory. That is, if you don't stock your product that's been selling in the platform, they will charge you a fee for not selling it. And that's insane, right? Like that is like the kill shot that is really making people think, man, I really hope there's an Amazon competitor like now. Shopify, Temu, TikTok, whoever it might be. Hopefully not a Chinese-based company, because, man, I don't really want to run over to that side of the world. But that's the reality we are in today.
Now, what makes somebody say, like yourself, who's really deep into this whole thing, say, I'm going to not go from my Amazon guy to not my Amazon guy? And because what you're saying is, as a seller, this is a very sort of difficult play in that space. Why? What gives you hope that people are still going to say, because as the Amazon guy, you probably want people to still think Amazon's a viable option. And,
I do, but I also,
what opens that up to say that that's the case?
Yeah. So I also know the harder it gets, the more likely I have job security, because if you're not on Amazon, you're irrelevant. And the second that statement's not true, my agency will just pivot over to wherever we need to be, right? We help people on Walmart. We help people on TikTok. But I'm here to tell you, it is 10 times harder to sell on Walmart, and you get 1/30th of the return. So why would anybody want to do that, right? And so I can spin up all of these sub companies, my Walmart guy, my Shopify guy, but the demand is still present on Amazon. And the reason for that is more than 75% of American households are Prime members. And if we quiz random people, what was the last item you bought online? It was a tweezer, it was some soap, whatever it might be. Where'd you buy it from? Amazon, 93% of the time. And you know, how many of us are willing to purchase something off of a website today? Do we trust them with their credit card? Do we want to invest in the time of setting up the checkout cart? That's 10 minutes of effort. Why would I even want to do that? I would happily pay an extra $2 for the same item on Amazon. Then I get my 5% cash back from my Prime card. Then I get the ease of not having to waste time typing stuff in. And if I hate the item, I'll just return it. And even if I damage the item, Amazon gives me a refund. Right? All of that is why Amazon is dominant and will remain dominant for the next 10 years. So it's okay.
Well, I went out to Best Buy. I went out to Best Buy. The case of my OtterBox broke, and I'm like, oh, I'm just going to go to Best Buy to buy one of these. And I was and then I got there, they didn't have it in inventory, and I'm like, I just drove across town to pick it up.
Best Buy not have. Jeez Louise.
I know, right? And so I went, I should have just bought an Amazon. And then my wife reminded me, and she said, Steve, we have 2 Amazon Prime accounts. Just buy it on Amazon, because she has hers and I have mine. And it's just, you know, and I thought about, yeah, I probably should have done that. And meanwhile, the day before I'd ordered a book, and the day before that I had ordered a book. And, you know, I do Amazon for a lot of the books that I get, you know, either digital or otherwise. And you're right. Everybody buys from Amazon. So the buyers, I can agree with you, from the buyer's experience is so great. So then if the sellers, it's so difficult, and you said, as the more difficult it gets, the more important it becomes for somebody to work with an expert in that space. What is the expert going to bring that they're not going to be able to figure out themselves? Like, I mean, other than obviously the complexity of it, like what is so now I'm like, okay, I'm going to commit to Amazon. I'm going to pay that stupid no stocking fee. I'm going to go through all of those problems because there's this utopia at the end. Give me some paths here.
So Amazon's conversion rate is between 8 and 12%, and your website is between 1 and 2%. 3 if you got an excellent website, right? And so the money that it would take to get going on Amazon and the speed at which you can do it is uncomparable anywhere else, right? So on Amazon, you can have an up and running business to $50,000 run rate in less than 6 weeks. Does everybody do it? Absolutely not. But you can, is the point, right? Now, I'll give you some examples of mistakes that I've run into and why an agency is a necessary component. So I sell on Amazon myself, and I've had some of my own troubles. I've paid my own tax. This is a hot sauce bottle I launched. I order 1,000 of these. I got a great design. I spent $1,500 even just making the dang logo. I'll put it up there, front and center in the camera so you can see. Like, it's a nice little hot sauce bottle. Now, I say little, but it's actually 5 pounds, and it's made of glass. So I thought, at this point in time, this was like 5 years ago, I had no warehouse. I was bootstrapping it out of my own home. Okay, so I was, I had a pallet of this in my garage, whatever. So I was like, I don't really want to do the prep work. So I decide I'm going to send this in to Amazon and pay them to do the prep work, which was the whole point of FBA. So Amazon, to their credit, takes my bottle, puts it in bubble wrap, throws on the label, and puts it in stock. So far, so good. Then I launch, and the stories start popping in. I start getting pictures. And what happened is they shipped out my bottles in padded envelopes. They refused, after weeks of me fighting them, to not ship this out in a box. They basically said you had to ship that in a box to begin with. And I was like, well, then why am I freaking paying you for prep work? Right? Like, it made zero sense. And so even an Amazon expert at this point, 5 years ago, I was doing pretty good, $1 million seller, but like, I didn't comprehend stuff like that. So if an expert makes mistakes like this, costing thousands of dollars, then somebody who hasn't even attempted it themselves, even if they've sold on other platforms, is not prepared for the stupidity, dare I say, that you have to go through as a seller. And that's just one example, right? I could spend the rest of this podcast talking about challenges that sellers go through. And it's just insane. Like, Chinese attacks are happening, hijacking your listings. Now, it's interesting because there's this dichotomy of the difficulty level, and this props up the agency and makes it a viable model. But for the sellers, they still have to do this, because if you don't, where else are you going to go? Right? That's what happens when a monopoly is created. It makes it really difficult, nigh impossible, to succeed without Amazon.
Yeah, there's a lot of companies, and I do know companies that have succeeded outside of Amazon in the small product space, but I would agree with you. I always wonder, I look and I'm like, why are they not on Amazon? And now you're starting to give me hints as to why. But maybe they just didn't realize that somebody like My Amazon Guy exists. And so, they've just, again, tried to go through that process alone. And so, number one, we talk about that. The number two thing is we've now got it on Amazon, and you talk about an 8% conversion rate. What's driving that conversion rate? And is it something that you're doing as an organization to help them? And if so, what are those things that you're doing?
So there's two main drivers to get traffic on Amazon. The first is pay-per-click advertising, pay the piper, and the second is search engine optimization. And that's earned media. Just like you would on Google for a website, you do the same thing on Amazon. You'll do things like put keywords into the listing, the title, the bullet points, the description. There's a thing called A+ content, which is kind of the nicer design elements, enhanced brand content, if you will, on the bottom of the listing. And in there, you can actually put alt text, that's keywords for images, behind the photos. And this is programming to help the robots understand this is what the product is about, help you get seen by more and more people. And so what we have found is you can double the keywords that you're indexed for by following a few basic principles. Number one, add 500 words of copy in your A+ content. Number two, add keywords behind the photos, 100 characters per photo. There's generally somewhere around 30 photos you can do this behind the brand story in the A+ content. And number three, create a keyword list of things that have relevant traffic with high converting terms and a volume that you track, and rotate your copy, your search terms, all of the things that we just talked about in sync with trying to chase that. And in addition to that, pay the piper and do your advertising. And if you do those things, you're going to do well. There's also, one of the fastest ways. So if you're an Amazon seller today listening to this, this is a hack for you. It's your main image. Your main image is the most important thing that you can get right on Amazon. Fastest way to grow, easiest thing to fix. So if I was to sell this soap right here, I could have a single box like this and put a 4-pack in the top corner and call it a day. But in reality, what would be better for a main image is if we have the soap outside of the packaging underneath it like this, and demonstrate what the product does. And in addition to that, so this smells pretty good. This has got some flower scents involved. Let's put a little flowers on the main image, give it some color pop, and give a consumer like, hey, I can see the packaging, I can see the product, I can see the scents, I can see the ingredients. Now I have a compelling reason to click this listing. And if you do that, you're going to generate lots of traffic. And the best thing about this too is since conversion's already solved for on Amazon, you only really need to fix traffic. But when you focus on traffic, the conversion also goes up, ironically.
Oh yeah, I would think so. The one thing Amazon does so incredibly well when you talk about the buyer focused experience, and we actually quote it in other systems when we're teaching sales training and funnels and all these other things, is the idea that the frictionless transaction. And Amazon has made that to a T. The fact that you can go onto a website and just one click and buy and it shows up the next day, that is just so super simple. Rather than having to go through a whole checkout process and all these other things, it makes it really easy.
And I just wanted to show you what the main image end result could look like based on that demonstration here. So you can see we got the apple cinnamon to the left of it. We got the 4-stack, all that good stuff. And that makes a big difference.
Oh, that looks great. Yeah. I'm in the market for soap. I really like there's a soap that was a Star Wars soap we bought a little while ago that was epic.
It's probably made by Dr. Squatch.
Dr. Squatch, that's the one. It was the
number
best.
one competitor.
Oh, yeah. Is it? Sorry, man.
No, it's okay. I was trying to take their market share by making a female character, and it works.
Ah,
got the cease and desist and everything.
Nice.
Oh. And by the way, I'll scroll down. Here's what's the brand story module. Here's the A+ content. Your goal on Amazon is to take up as much space as humanly possible. Here's a little alt text viewer. Every single one of these photos, little Chrome extension to see that, has alt text behind it. Right there, this one, I'm using Spanish in some of these as well. Spanish, fastest growing.
So smart.
Yeah, fastest growing.
Yeah, alt text is I think there's one of those secret little hacks that people don't understand when you're actually putting in I think it's called metadata or whatever, is putting in that alt text so that it actually can be found through the bots.
And then horizontal space, you get all this stuff. These are things most sellers aren't doing today. But like that's 19 modules, increases the average order value, links all the products together, especially the bigger your catalog, the more important that becomes.
Now that is a question. If you look at your catalog, does catalog size matter when you're going onto Amazon, or is it something that is
Yeah, it depends. Like it depends on your goal, right? So if you're selling clothing, you're going to inevitably have high SKU counts, size, color, etc. But like if we looked at my sales, so my top 2 seller SKUs do just under $100,000 a year. So like some masculine soaps, this is one of them right here. Macho soap's another one. And these 2 soaps do like 40-50% of all of my sales. So if I wanted to simplify my life, I would just sell 2 soap SKUs. But I'm looking for a brand. I'm looking for expansion. Therefore, create additional sense and, make stupid ideas like this one. Like I thought, teenagers will buy Lit, Drip, Bustin' and Vibe. Spoiler alert, no, they don't. They don't think it's funny when I made that. That was a bomb. But we also do things like, I'm overstocking something. We'll call it the mystery SKU. I still sell 100 of those a month. I don't know why, but people like mystery.
That's how I order off the menu when I go to a restaurant. When I go to a restaurant, I don't want to pick what's on there. I'm just like, you know what? Show something up on my table that's going to be fantastic. Don't tell me, just make it happen. So I would be probably one of those mystery soap buyers. When I
launched this product, it totally bombed. Monkey farts, dirty socks, swole pimple popper, right? This is what happens to entrepreneurs when they're so full of themselves. They're like, I'm going to make the next funniest shit ever and launch this stuff. Spoiler alert, no, it did not work. I gave a lot of my clients and employees monkey farts for Christmas this year. Let's just say that. Yeah.
Well, you got to ship me some monkey farts because my kids would like that one. Yeah.
I mean, honestly, it's a top 3 set. There's no question. But like, nobody wants to buy it is the problem.
That's right. Like the idea of it, they just don't want to execute on it.
Yeah, but it's very flowery, fruity, musky. I mean, we tried to tone it back a little bit, still didn't make a difference. Yeah. So wouldn't recommend launching too many SKUs, too many variations on Amazon, especially if a newer seller. you'd be better off launching 3 unique products. They could still be in the same subcategory, but 3 unique products will do better than a deep line, in my opinion.
Now, is there a specific price point that makes the most sense on, or product category that makes the most sense on Amazon versus others?
I mean, there's going to be a lot of theory and opinions that people will give on this, and I'll answer your question, but I'll be honest. The higher level answer to that is to simply stick to what you know, right? So I was a competitive chess player in high school. I played in the U.S. Chess Open. I named my youngest son after Magnus Carlsen. Like, I am a chess avid. I beat the CEO of chess.com in a chess match last week, right? So like, I'm a chess player. If I were to sell chess sets on Amazon, which I'm not going to because Queen's Gambit came and gone, but if I was going to, I would be very good at what I do. Now, if I tried to sell dental floss, let's say bamboo dental floss, because that was a thing 2 years ago, I wouldn't know where to start. I'm not a dentist. I have cavities, but that doesn't make me an expert in floss, right? Mm-hmm. So if we use a data tool like DataDive, Helium 10, Jungle Scout, whatever it might be, and we go in there and we realize there's demand, that's cool and all. But if you don't understand the product, you are going to be at a severe disadvantage. It would be like a white belt in jiu-jitsu trying to go into a black belt tournament, right? It's just, the dude's going to be punched out in the first 10 seconds, or in a chokehold or arm bar. Yeah. I've only 5 sessions into jiu-jitsu and I just said punch out. So I look like a white belt.
It's all good. It's all good.
But in any case, it creates a lot of competition if you chase data instead of sticking to what you understand. So I think being an inch wide and a mile deep in business has more advantage than following the market of supply and demand. Now, obviously, if you know your stuff and you're in the market demand, that's the winning home run. But you're better off sticking to what you know and then trying to find it in demand in that order. So having said that, a lot of people for new time sellers will typically do home goods, something around $20 and make it easy. But if you're smart, you will go counter narrative and do some more complicated things and make that your competitive advantage. You'll do $200 items on Amazon that are bulky. Why? Because 99% of the internet will avoid it. And that makes it your competitive advantage. So just like I talked about the hot sauce bottles, I also sold wine glasses. Everybody I ever talked to is like, why do you sell wine glasses? Aren't there breakage? And I'm like, yeah, there is. That's why I know you're not going to do it. That's why I do it. Right. And that becomes a competitive advantage. So all of the things we could say, pro benefit, pro negative, whatever, they're all balanced in a sense, right? The market will balance that out, which is why I think sticking to what you know is way more advantageous because you can't balance that.
Yeah, that makes total sense. I think Bruce Lee says it best. He says, don't fear the person who learned 1,000 things and did it once. Fear the person who learned one thing and did it 1,000 times. And I think focusing on what you know, I think is so critical. But you did say something that kind of spawned some thoughts around the idea of the chess game and selling chessboards. You're like, well, Queen's Gambit was gone, so it's not the right. It's about timing around items being sold at specific times. Is there some specific and unique advantage around that? If there's, some movement that's going on, say medieval stuff's on Vogue and you're going to start selling online swords or, whatever it is, obviously saying that the first rule that it is something that you have in your inventory or in your wheelhouse, that timing could be something that could be certainly factored in, or you just think anytime's the right time?
So if you like sticking up with cultural phenomenons and the next time a Star Wars film comes out or Netflix does a series and Stranger Things and whatever, and you want to keep up with that and ride that, then you can have some fun with it. You have to be agile and you have to produce stuff really fast. And then 2 weeks later, it's not hot anymore and you're stuck with 1,000 pieces of inventory. Ask me how I know. And so the question then becomes, would you rather have a sustainable product like a soap that everybody buys year round, and I can pretty much forecast you how many soaps I'm going to sell for the next year and tell you which months I'm going to sell what? Or would you rather chase the next fidget spinner? And let me tell you, there were a lot of people that bought container loads of fidget spinners 6-7 years ago, and they still haven't sold them all.
Yeah. What would you do with a container full of fidget spinners?
Go to Baltimore and find some salesmen on the street. But even then, they still haven't sold through their 2018 stock. So
yeah. I saw that with, what is it, those Pogo things or whatever? They're like those little collectible chips. I think I've heard about those stories where people end up with a high inventory that you just need to melt down or something and sell it as like raw parts.
So sticking to what you know will prevent you from getting hit like that. Now, if I had done chess sets and then Queen's Gambit came out, I would have been buying, 10x my inventory. And then a year and a half later, I'd be like, oh gosh, I'm sitting on a bunch of stuff, which is what happens. So even if you stick to what you know, those cultural phenomenons will come and go and affect you. And you ride it while you can, and it's nice. But then after that, and then all of these competitors show up, and then your brand is it just beats up. So even if you chase it and succeed, that's when I would sell the brand, right? And so investors typically are not going to want to buy a high SKU brand. They typically want to buy something easy to run, sustainable, and predictable, right? Same idea with McDonald's and a franchise. You dumb it down so easy that an idiot can run it, because if you don't, somebody else will.
Yeah, that makes total sense. Now, once you have that product that you know really well, you know that it's going to create some repeatable business. You talked a little about driving traffic using, obviously SEO oriented stuff, but then you also talked about, pay-per-click advertising. And when you look at the pay-per-click and you look at somebody who's got a $20 thing, how do they make the math work on the pay-per-click so that it's actually viable?
So most categories like home goods still averaging about 80 cents a click. And so it works out in a lot of categories. Now, a category like supplements, where it's $5 minimum bids, it's the LTV, lifetime value. So what you do is you sell at a loss when you first start. There's a thing called the honeymoon period. You get more sales to get more sales. You need sales to get sales on Amazon. It's a weird saying. And then it snowballs you into getting those additional earned media placements. Right? But if you can get a supplement to launch and rank it organically for 2,000, 3,000, 4,000 keywords in the first 90 days, you're going to get thousands of cursory sales. And so that's how you maneuver around high PPC costs, is by basically jettisoning as quickly as possible on the platform, generate the buzz, leapfrog the rankings, and then sustain it through lifetime value, reorders, subscribe and save, and whatnot.
So the really important thing for them to look at if they're going to go to the pay-per-click model is they really have to have a really good program for a lifetime value. Like if you're going on and you're selling a toaster and that's really all you got, you've got to be really honed in that your lifetime value is that one toaster. But the idea of you sell toasters and then you sell other kitchen products, or maybe you sell something else that goes adjacent to that you could sell, is that kind of what you're saying?
To be successful on Amazon, you must advertise. There are probably some exceptions to some things I say on the podcast today. There's going to be a seller out there that's not doing ads, killing it, doing $1 million. But realistically, if he was doing ads, he'd probably be doing $3 million. And so you have to take into consideration that Amazon is pushing ads so hard that if you don't do it, you're leaving sales on the table. Now, does it take out of your profits and margins? Absolutely. Certain categories, the lifetime value is going to be more guaranteed, longer value, 7 sales averages, etc. If you're selling a single item with one-time purchase and that's your lifetime value, then it has to be sensical, and you got to be going for an ACoS of 25, 35%. But in supplements, you could do 300% ACoS, 300% of the value of your product in advertising costs to acquire a customer, and it still works. And we still have 50 supplement companies starting up every day because it still works.
Yeah, that makes sense. I know that business is absolutely exploding. And I think on Amazon, that's probably, as you said, 300% as your advertising cost, and the life cycle you're looking at. What's your recovery on that, do you think? With somebody like that, is that 3 months, 6 months, 9 months?
It's going to be closer to a year for supplement, no question. And that might be in a best case scenario. There are certain brands like Zule Kitchen. I know the owner, his name's Aaron. He launched the most common basic kitchen accessories you could possibly imagine, right? If you type in kitchen accessory, probably 4 of his items will be at the top of page 1. So we're talking like lemon squeezers and all kinds of things, and things for other vegetable peelers and stuff. Well, he took a loss on some of his items for 3 years. 3 years, generating 100,000 reviews. And now he's taking his profit, and he's untouchable, right? So there are smart business savvy guys that will take 3-year bets. We're talking hundreds of thousands of dollars in losses to generate millions on the back end. But when that dude goes to sell his business, he's going to get an 8x multiple, right? Where an average seller might get a 3.5. And so you got to decide like what kind of investor you're going to be. Most people need to be profitable within 6 to 12 months or they go on. It's like a restaurant industry, right? For every 3 restaurants that launch, only 1 typically exists 3 years from now. The same is very true about selling on Amazon. Despite the fact it's easier and despite the fact that it only costs less than $10,000 to launch end-to-end a fully viable product, still less than 1 out of 3 are going to succeed. It's just competitive. But it's also the greatest wealth transfer in my lifetime, right? I, a dude who was a marketer, am now a millionaire from selling on Amazon because of the platform. I would never have been able to do this going corporate track, becoming a CMO. Never would have happened.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. When you look at you talked a little bit about the success rate of, the restaurant versus the person starting on Amazon. The person who's say they want to do something similar to what you're doing, or the person who wants to start releasing a product, as you said, it's 6 months, 12 months, to get to revenue neutral, let alone profit. That's a huge hurdle for most people to swallow. So if somebody doesn't have that as an ability, would you tell them maybe Amazon's not for you, or what would you say?
Yeah, if you're looking for something that gives you profits in the bank account within 90 days, go get a job, is what I would say. Like there's nothing that will compete with that. Now, if you want to, Alex Hormozi probably gives the best answer to this. So I'll kind of channel some Alex here. He would say your Monday through Friday is to put bread on the table, but your weekend is to invest in your future. And Amazon is a very easy platform to side hustle while you're working a job, right? So for a year or two, if you side hustle and invest and try and create a brand, you could get up to $1 million in run rate, then start to take a profit. And realistically, a lot of brands are usually net profit 15%. So if you want to replace your 6-figure income, that means you got to get close to $1 million run rate on Amazon. And the problem a lot of people have is they have to take a lot of their profits and reinvest it to grow the brand and buy more inventory. It's a very cash heavy business. Now, then there's agencies like mine, which cost me nothing to start, and I was profitable day one, which allowed me to scale my vehicle much faster. I'm a good Amazon seller, but I'm an excellent agency owner, and I was able to scale that to 20 million way faster with less risk than I was to able to run an Amazon brand. So that's why I chose to do what I do. And Alex also talks about changing his vehicle from gyms to teaching. And I did the same thing he did.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I know for the person who's got to build that factory, for the person who's got to then hire the people to make the stuff, there's a huge runway. Whereas the service provider, such as the agency, your runway out the door is pretty quick. So somebody who says, well, great, I want to do exactly what you're doing. What would you give them advice to be successful to get out the door?
So I spun up my agency guy to help other agencies. And the reason I did that is because 40% of my customer base who were buying my standard operating procedures at my Amazon guy were agencies. And so a unique brand position that I took is MAG is an education company who happens to be an agency. So I had to give you that backstory to understand this. So I teach other agencies all the time. And what we generally tell them is stick to what you know and understand. So if you spent 10,000 hours in pay-per-click advertising, you should probably be a PPC agency. If you spent 10,000 hours doing graphic design, be a design agency. If you're a glutton for punishment and want to do all of the above and try and troubleshoot listing yanks and build up everything, go be a full service agency. But I'm here to tell you, there are not very many agencies that survive longer than 5 years doing full service in the SMB world. Most of them turn a profit, start to shrink and go under. I could count dozens of them too. So it's very taxing. So here's the number one thing people need to realize when they start an agency. Imagine you are shoveling horse manure all day, every day, and you have to have a smile on your face while you do it. That is what it's like to be an agency owner, especially in the Amazon space.
And so this is why you have the last 5 sessions you've been training Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, so that you can forget for a moment the idea that you're shoveling horse manure. Hopefully you shower before you go. And
It's an
then
intimate
go
sport.
out and...
Yes. but
it's actually interesting because one of the things you do it was actually, when I look at you from the Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu perspective, we had this podcast booked, I think a week or so ago. You ended up having an emergency root canal, and then you had to get some other work done. And meanwhile, you still showed up to Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. So that shows a certain amount of grit and determination. Do you think that's probably one of the biggest things that has helped you, that mindset has helped you be successful in what you're doing?
I want to add value to the world, and you can't do that unless you add value every single day, right? Like that is my gym, so to speak. Now, I very much believe that your body is a temple and you must protect it at all costs, because if you don't do jujitsu with your body, your mind will do jujitsu to yourself, right? Like you're just going to have the inability to compete, right? So I firmly believe in taking care of all aspects. I want to be prosperous in all things. I don't just want to be a rich guy. I want to be a rich guy with a hot wife, a big family. I got 5 kids, #never pull out. I want to have everything prosperous in all ways. I want to have the nice car, the big house, everything. And I'm spiritual. I still go to church on Sundays, right? Like all of it. Now, if we really analyze where I'm weakest, it's 100% on the body. And that's why I decided to start up jujitsu. And that's because, I'll do workouts, but I just won't, I'm such a competitive person, but I need to compete against somebody else, right? I don't have the discipline to get on the tonal machine every single day and do the reps. But when I have a coach in the room and I want to give up or I want to stop halfway through, I would feel embarrassed. And so I got to tell you, the neck muscle, the first few sessions, just trying to, like, number one rule of jiu-jitsu, like, keep your head off the ground, right? And there's probably like 10 other number one rules, but like that was the first one I understood. And my neck, oh my gosh, I can't keep my head up, right? And that's what it's like to be an agency owner. That's what it's like to be an Amazon seller. That's what it's like to be an entrepreneur running a business. You have to keep your head off the ground at all times. If you don't, what happens? The person you're fighting, you can't see them. You don't have a good look. They're going to come and get past your guard. They're going to hit you from the side. Yep. So yeah, that's why I think it's so important to show up. And even though sometimes I don't want to, sometimes I want to curl up in bed and just sleep in. And I can do that. I've hit the I win button in life. I mean, like, realistically, I don't have to do any of this, but I have a piece in me that it's never going to be enough, right? Like, any high drive individual who's listening to this will resonate with this. It's never enough. No matter what goal you hit, you always set another goal that's twice as hard, and you must continue on. That's just how I am programmed, how most high drive people are programmed. And so I want to build a business that outlives me. I want to build a legacy. I want to build multiple businesses where what I have taught is taught again and again and again, right? I want to be the Bruce Lee of business in my world and teach hundreds of students, which spawn Jackie Chan's and how many other people that come from that. So that's what's keeping me going. That's why I show up.
And that's amazing. And you definitely showed up today with a lot of really valuable nuggets, and the idea of, really honing in on that one thing that you're good at and really doubling down on it with some really sage advice about, focusing in on the things that are going to be successful for your business. And, Stephen, thanks you so much for sharing all the amazing information about Amazon. It's one of those worlds that I've always looked at and with confusion. As the buyer, no problem. As getting on as a seller, I think you've definitely opened some eyes into that environment. So I thank you for that.
Thanks for having me on. It's not passive income.
No, it never is. Just like real estate. And so the idea for people to get a hold of you, the best thing is you've got your podcast, which is the My Amazon Guy podcast. That's a great spot to reach you. And for other spots for them to reach you, I know you've got also like your My Refund Guy. You've got a couple other, things that are out there that I thought were really interesting too. We didn't get a hit on those ones. But the easiest way to reach you would just look up My Amazon Guy. I think I typed that once and it was so easy to find you. So kudos to that.
Yeah, even if you just type in any Amazon problem, you'll probably find some of my content. I've got like 5,000 pieces of videos and graphics and tutorials out there. I'm very active on LinkedIn. Hope to see you guys around.
That sounds amazing. My friend, thank you very much for joining us. I really appreciate you. And this is the Money, the Mindset, and the Mentoring podcast. We will see you guys on the next one.